Welcome back to Football Daily for this week's 11, where we take a look at a team of players that clubs should have sold this summer. Let's get it! Goalkeeper, Jack Butland. When he was called into the England squad for Euro 2012, having played just 24 games in League 2, hopes were high for 19-year-old Jack Butland. But 8 years on and he is sat on the bench for a struggling Stoke City side and will likely leave on a free transfer at the end of the season. Costing just £3.5 million in 2013, the now 27-year-old has made over 150 appearances for Stoke, but lost his starting role to Welshman Adam Davies towards the end of last season. And whilst it's never a bad thing to have two starting quality goalkeepers, there's no doubt Butland could have been of interest to a number of clubs in the top 2 tiers. His £35,000 a week contract seems rather excessive for a club that flirted with relegation to League 1 last year, and even more so for a bench warmer. Valued at less than £6 million thanks to some pretty poor form by Transfermarkt, Stoke could quite easily have got a half decent fee and his contract off the books, but are now resigned to paying him a couple of million more before his deal ends in June. Defender, Eric Garcia. Yes, we know that Manchester City are lacking on the central defensive front, and that's probably the reason Pep Guardiola hasn't sold promising centre-back Eric Garcia. The 19-year-old has decided not to renew his contract at the Etihad when it expires next summer, with the assumption being the Spaniard will return home to Barcelona, a club he first joined as a 7-year-old. All of Garcia's 13 Premier League appearances came last campaign in the midst of an injury crisis for City. But this season he'll likely be 4th at best in the pecking order, with his competition being Laporte, Ake, Stones, Otamendi and potentially Fernandinho as well. City are holding out for £30 million for the talented yet largely unproven Garcia, whilst Barcelona are willing to offer around half of that right now. But for a club that buys rather than sells, having parted way with just 6 players for at least £15 million in the last decade, it might have been wiser for Garcia's current employers to just take the money and put that towards any deal for Kalidou Koulibaly. Defender, Nemanja Maksimovic. Whilst it's Koulibaly that never seems to leave the transfer news cycle, it's his Napoli teammate Maksimovic that arguably should have been shifted to raise some funds. 5 months younger than the Senegalese international, the 28-year-old could probably be viewed as a slightly worse alternative to the sought-after centre-back. They did put up similar numbers in 1920 with Maksimovic's 2.9 defensive actions a match, just short of Koulibaly's 3.2. Also, the Serbian completes 2% more of his passes, yet is valued at a fifth of the £80 million Napoli were chasing for his defensive partner. Maybe it makes sense to keep the cheaper option here, but there is a slight issue. Maksimovic has just 9 months remaining on his current deal, meaning that if Napoli do shift Koulibaly, Gattuso will be seriously short at the heart of defence. With interest in Kalidou cooling, Maksimovic stalling on a new contract, maybe it makes more sense to shift the Serbian whilst his stock is as high as it's ever been. Defender, Emerson Palmieri. Completing our back 3 is Chelsea left-back Emerson Palmieri. It's hard to see why Chelsea ever spent an initial €20 million on the Brazilian-born international, and 2.5 years later, it seems there's even less use for the former Roma player at Stamford Bridge, following the arrival of Ben Chilwell for £50 million from Leicester City. As it stands, Emerson is 3rd in the depth chart behind the Englishman and Marcos Alonso, who's been first choice for 4 years and a player Emerson hasn't displaced since his arrival. And with the emergence of Reece James on the other side of the fence, Cesar Azpilicueta is also freed up as a viable candidate for emergency left-back. So even with the rumours of a departure for Alonso, Emerson also clearing out his locker would probably not severely impact Chelsea's depth in defence. And after spending the best part of £200 million in just one window, Frank Lampard's side certainly need to recoup at least some of the money, and his 26-year-old third choice left-back is certainly an expendable asset. Midfield, Jesse Lingard. It's been a difficult 12 months for Jesse Lingard both on and off the pitch. The 27-year-old had failed to register a goal or an assist in the league since December 2018 before scoring in the final minute of Manchester United's 1920 campaign, and the scrutiny he's coming under never seems to let up. In fairness, he didn't hit 1,000 league minutes, making just 9 starts. But this being the lowest total since he became a regular at Old Trafford, perhaps reflects both his disappointing form as well as his squad status. And with Paul Pogba hoping to complete a full season once again, Bruno Fernandes in form, and the emergence of Mason Greenwood in attack, it doesn't seem like Lingard will get his minutes to climb back up. Add in the recently signed Donny van de Beek and the ongoing pursuit of Jadon Sancho, not happening, and you could suggest the 20-year-old association with United should probably come to an end. Maybe that wouldn't be a bad thing either. Away from the bright lights of Old Trafford and with a little less pressure on him, Lingard could certainly discover the form that made him an England regular. Midfield, Ibrahim Sahin. It's hardly been a season to remember for Toulouse. They'll be playing in France's second tier for the first time since 2002-2003 after finishing the Ligue 1 campaign with just 13 points from 28 games, which included just a single point from their final 18 matches. Adding in the financial impact of the pandemic, and this is a club that needs money quickly. Yet here they are, a week before the window closes, still with their most valuable asset on their books. 22-year-old defensive midfielder Ibrahim Sahin is valued at just €10 million on Transfermarkt, despite just 1 year remaining on his deal, €2.5 million more than any of his teammates. Last year, despite playing for one of the worst teams in French top-flight history, the Ivorian put up 5 defensive actions per match, as well as 0.9 shots, 1.1 key passes and 1.2 dribbles. It's always difficult for a club to give up their prized asset, but a difficult situation calls for a tough decision to be made. The 8-figure fee they get for Sahin is certainly the lesser of two evils right now. Midfielder, Isco. It's been a summer of change at the Bernabeu as Zinedine Zidane has successfully shifted what he considered to be deadwood, with both Gareth Bale and James Rodriguez heading to the Premier League. With a relatively solid midfield and an abundance of wingers, it makes sense that the next name on the list should be Isco. After just 15 starts and less than 1,200 minutes in La Liga last season, it's expected that the 28-year-old will be no more than a squad player again this campaign. And with 18-year-old Sergio Arribas, a player in the same mould as Isco hoping to break through into the first team, maybe it's wiser for Zidane to hand the limited game time to the youngster instead of the veteran. Isco still has 2 years left on his contract, so his sell-on value will only decrease from here, and would likely walk into the starting lineup of most top clubs on the continent. Sell now and Madrid will get a decent return on 7 years of service and might be able to add to that Mbappe fund for next season. Midfielder, Felipe Anderson. Now there's obviously no chance West Ham would sell Felipe Anderson. After all, he's the Hammers' former record signing, costing some £35 million from Lazio back in 2018, and is the highest earner at the club on a reported £125k a week. But if the club wanted to make moves in the transfer market this time around, their best option would probably have been selling this man. In a position where they can only buy if they sell first, it's arguable that aside from talismanic Declan Rice, Anderson is the most valuable player at the club. This is despite coming off a down year where he barely hit 1,500 league minutes and made 5 goal contributions, compared to over 3,000 minutes and 13 contributions the prior year. And after losing his spot for the opening match of this season's Premier League, maybe Anderson isn't set to be the key player it was hoped he would be in East London. If West Ham sold him now, they could at least recoup some of what they paid for the 27-year-old Brazilian, attempt to reinvest it wisely and stave off the drop once more in 2021. Forward, Erik Lamela. From East to North London, where unsurprisingly the arrival of Gareth Bale will result in less game time for the rotation of wingers at Tottenham Hotspur. But it is kind of ironic how the biggest victim could end up being Erik Lamela, the man brought in to replace the Welshman at White Hart Lane, and the last remaining player still with Spurs that was bought with the Gareth Bale money 7 years ago. But despite being drafted as the prodigal son's replacement, the 28-year-old has been a little bit unlucky at Tottenham Hotspur. A number of injuries have led to him missing around a century of Tottenham matches, and only twice has the Argentine international played more than 30 league games in a season. With Bale returning and Heung-min Son, Lucas Moura and January signing Steven Bergwijn all also competing for a starting role, there isn't really space for the somewhat inconsistent, injury-prone winger. In the knowledge that Bale has been available all summer, Jose Mourinho probably should have made more of an effort to shift Erik Lamela or maybe Ryan Sessegnon to accommodate him. Forward, Musa Moreno. The transfer window is always an interesting one for Portuguese clubs, as they've often had to rely on the sale of their star players to keep finances ticking over year after year. This is obviously seen most recently with Porto happy to tout star left-back Alex Telles, who has just 1 year left on his deal to Manchester United. A player in the same situation though that doesn't seem to be going anywhere for now is his teammate Musa Moreno. The Malian international joined Porto in 2016, became a regular in the 17-18 campaign where he scored 22 goals in 29 league matches. The subsequent campaign saw him become a household name across Europe after he scored in 6 consecutive Champions League matches, helping his side qualify for the quarter-finals. In his 3 years as a starter for Porto, Marega has averaged just under a goal every 2 games, a rate a number of Premier League clubs would relish from an £18 million rated striker this summer. Forward, it's a controversial one, Lionel Messi. We know including Messi in this 11 is going to split you, and we understand Barcelona were never going to willingly sell the 33-year-old, but you can't deny there was at least some logic in letting the Argentine wave goodbye to the Camp Nou, not least that his contract situation hasn't yet changed at all. Whilst the 6-time Ballon d'Or winner backed down from his dispute where he believed he could leave for a free, all it has done is ensure Messi stays for just one more season, and looks pretty unhappy doing it, with the contract set to expire anyway in 2021. Barcelona are in the midst of a rebuild, and while personally I think Messi trumps any signing they could potentially make, some people at Football Daily, and this scriptwriter in particular, claims that the fee they would have gotten for Messi would have gone a long way to contribute. Both Barcelona and Lionel Messi probably owe it to each other to give it one more go, but it could leave the Blaugrana in a worse situation come next June. It was going to be a move that rocked the footballing world and one that no one ever anticipated, but perhaps it would have been the right thing to do if Barca really do need that cash. I'm not having it, just keep Messi. Rubbish. Alright, so that was our 11 of players your club probably should have sold this summer. Is there anyone we missed out? Let us know in the comments below. If you did enjoy it, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the like button, watch more Football Daily content. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later.